All right, great. All right, everyone. Now we've got a special treat for all of you because when we asked you who you wanted to see and wanted you to hear from this off season, overwhelmingly, and I'm not exaggerating at all, our next guest was at the top of your list. And I think we can all agree about this. I know you tell all of your teams there's nothing like having fun and we're going to have a great time, but nobody, and I repeat, nobody had more fun shaking up the college football establishment this season than Coastal Carolina. And what a remarkable season they had down in Myrtle Beach. Undefeated regular season, number 9 national finish, 2 wins over top 25 programs, including probably the game of the year against BYU right there in Myrtle Beach. All of it done in just their 4th year of full-time FBS membership. Now he's here to talk about how they did it all, from the culture to the Chanticleers dynamic scheme. Balling at the beach. That's how we're going to get things started with tonight's keynotes. From the teal turf in Conway, South Carolina, to your screen, Coach Jamey Chadwell, head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Welcome to Blitz 21, Coach.
Charles, thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's an awesome opportunity to be on tonight. I know there's a lot of people that are excited about learning, and I'm thankful to have the chance to share, and hopefully we can learn together tonight.
Coach, as this season unfolded, and let's face it, 2020, when we look back and talk about the college football season, we talk about our world, everything came at us in an entirely different way. Before I start asking you about all the creative process and everything that you do at Coastal Carolina, what was it like getting into this season with your program, knowing the way the world was going?
Well, it was challenging, obviously. And the thing, this as a player and a coach, you're looking for as much routine as possible, right? When we get out of routine, we all start panicking. For us, nobody knew what the routine was going to be about. And we early on, once we started seeing what the direction everything was going, we tried every day to try to keep our players in some type of routine, even when they weren't with us. And I think that really led to some stability for us because everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. Are we playing? Are we not playing? And our whole thing was, hey, when we get answers, we'll let you know. But right now, these are what we can control, and we're going to try to make the most of it and do it together. And I think looking back, I'm not saying we handled it better than anybody else, but I felt like that helped give us a little bit of direction. As a young person, you want some direction on which way you're going, and that's what we tried to do, every day until we figured out what was going on.
Well, certainly, so the results speak for themselves. That direction that you and your staff provided for these youngsters, and then, of course, them buying into it and grasping onto it. But you also did a bunch of other things there as well that probably would give even more. I think it got plenty of play during this year, but maybe even more so when we're not talking about an overall pandemic. Teal turf. I've heard about these pro wrestling matches that have been staged, Coach. Something about mullets. Can you enlighten us a little bit about how creative you guys have gotten down there in South Carolina?
Well, football, as you go higher and higher, it obviously becomes a little bit more of a business, but it's still a game we all enjoy, right? We all started out because we loved it and had fun. And I think sometimes coaches, we squeeze so tight, we take the fun out of things. When you're a young program and you're trying to build who you are and your brand, what better way than to build a brand that's based off fun and having a great time with your team? Winning is hard. Winning is hard. We all know that. And so we wanted to make sure we were going to try to celebrate it. Obviously, our turf, we call it the surf turf. It tries to mimic our colors, but also what the sand and the beach look like. So that's unique. Some people might look at it on video and go, what in the world does that look like? But we love it, right? And then, what we do every week, we try to have a championship we play for, a theme. And I let the coaches come up with it. Each week we said, we're going to play for a championship this week. And what happened, and I select the coaches before the season starts to say, hey, you've got school 1, you got school 2. And it starts getting competitive. Those guys want to do and try to top week before. And we broke out in that locker room with the wrestling match. And I knew we were going to have a little bit of wrestling, but I mean, it was a whole WWE experience there. I was ready for Monday Night Raw to come on. I was waiting for Vince McMahon to call me and say, hey, take over XFL and help us do something. But that goes back to just having fun with it. And then, when the mullets came out of sort of nowhere, we got some crazy linebackers that wanted to do something different. We had a mustache contest during August. It was between the players and coaches who could have the best stash. And that started it. And then it went to some mullets. And it just sort of rode with us. And then when we got the Mormons versus the mullets there in early December, I think everybody realized, and of course the mullets fit Myrtle Beach perfectly, obviously, and where we're at. So we played into what the view of, of our area is sometimes, but that's part of, I think, it's coaching is you got to find ways to do your work, but also never forget that the fun is in winning and doing things together. And that's part of it. And every Monday we would talk about that championship, and then our players are looking forward to that locker room celebration because they want to see what happened next. And there's some I can't even tell, I can't tell you. I'm glad it didn't get on social media because we've had live animals before. We've done some crazy stuff, and the rest of them would have sort of just took off after that one victory we had.
Well, Coach, I'm just glad you're not dropping a big elbow on me right now. I'm a little jealous about the mullets because there's no way that any of this can turn into a mullet right now. So I'm a little jealous because I just don't have enough hair to get this thing done. But, so many coaches talk about what you were just talking about there, Coach, having fun, being creative, thinking differently, but you actually lived it. What gave you the fortitude? What gave you the direction, Coach, that says we're going to be able to live this as well?
Well, one, I think as a coach, you can't take yourself too serious, and you got to remember who you're dealing with. We as coaches sometimes we feel like we're dealing with adults that have it all put together, and they don't. They're young men trying to learn their way, and I think you got to try to remember where you came from and what you were like during that time frame, and what you wanted out of your experience. And when young people leave our program, obviously you hope you win and you hope you do a lot of those things, but really, what are you teaching them and training them for the next step? And for us, that was the main thing is, hey, I want them to remember this experience, the highs and lows, but I want them to be able to remember something. And so you start thinking about different ways to make it impactful for them. And obviously there's some fun in that. But also, the main thing that you want to do is football teaches young people about sacrifice. It teaches them about doing things together. And when you can tie that in with having some fun and they see my hard work, if I work hard and I sacrifice, there's some positive things that'll happen. They're more than willing to, run through that wall and take that extra sprint, do that extra thing that they need to do because they know there's some type of positive thing coming from behind.
Coach, we talk about, and Hudl's a great example of being able to find these kids on the recruiting trail, but you're not going to always find the kid that fits everything that you're looking for, right? He's not going to all be chiseled and perfect and all these other things. Your offensive line is a great example of that. You end up with an undefeated regular season, 2 top 25 wins with an offensive lineman not over 6'2", a starting center at 5'9". How do you identify these kids? But I'm guessing you're also talking about how you develop these youngsters to give you the kind of play you need.
Well, let me say this. I appreciate all the 5'9" centers in the country emailing us after they say our guy playing this year because we've got enough emails to last us for a long time. And part of it is, you're trying to recruit, the guys that maybe fit the what they're supposed to look like in a box. But sometimes you don't get those young people. Sometimes you're at a place you can't recruit them. They're walking your halls, right? And so for us, do they have the right fit for what we're doing? I mean, right fit. Do they identify with the values you have in our program? And if they do, then we're going to figure out a way, if they have the talent that we need, regardless whether they're 5'9" or 6'2", if they have those intangibles that we value, we're going to find a way to help them make successful. When you look at people and you say, well, they can't have done because they're this, I say, hey, we're going to make it happen in spite of this. It's all about filling them and making them feel like, hey, we can make it happen. I never one time mentioned to our players, well, you're 5'9", you can't do this. Now, am I going to ask them to do something a 6'2", 6'3" guy needs to? No, we got to be smart and creative with our plays and concepts. And so I'm not sitting here to tell you, hey, we're going to recruit 5'9" linemen the rest of our life. I'm not obviously stupid, but also I'm realistic to knowing, hey, who we are, what fits, it's important to us, and then find those guys that value it and put them in position to be successful. I think as coaches, sometimes we put everybody in a box. And they've been told, these undersized people have been told, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. When somebody tells them they are good enough, they learn how to run through a wall for you. And we don't tell them they're not good enough. We tell them you are good enough, and this is how we're going to do it. And if they buy into that and believe in that, great things can happen. And I tell everybody, you mentioned not over 6'2". We were 6'2", 5'10", 5'9", probably being generous. He's about 5'8". We were 5'11", and we were 6'1". That was what we started, and we averaged about 270 pounds. Now, I'm not bragging about that, but what I'm saying is we found a way. And I think as a coach, your job is no matter who's in your building, you find a way to put them in position to be successful and let them know you believe in them.
Coach, you mentioned knowing who you're about, knowing what your values are, right? Knowing what your program is. I remember a few years ago, I talked with a coach who was the head coach of a program that would be similar to yours, and they had a great amount of success. And all of a sudden, he found that he was hearing. You mentioned you're getting all the letters from the 5-9 centers. Now they were hearing from these guys that were the so-called 4-star, 5-star guys. They couldn't wait to come play at that place. And he felt like they got away from what they were about for a while before they figured it out. You're in that kind of a spot now, coach. You've got that spotlight where maybe some kids before are now saying, hey, I'm in the coastal. How are you going to identify those kids that fit your program, fit your values, even if their stars are higher than maybe some people might think?
Well, you know, Charles, that's a great question. We talked about that actually as a staff because of the success we've had. There's been a lot more doors open, a lot more people recognize Coastal and the brand of ball that we play. And so there's more people that are interested in that, and they're talented young people. And, you know, what I share with our staff and what's important to us is don't lose sight of how we win. I think it's important is how you win. How do you not lose football games? And for us, so we identify certain characteristics that we have to have in our players. And none of them happen to do with how fast they are, how big they are. Yes, it'd be great if they're fast and strong and can run, but do they value what we're about? We're about competition. We're about discipline. We're about accountability and passion. Those are the 4 characteristics of our program that we recruit to, that we identify. Every question that we ask is all about those characteristics that I mentioned. And for us, if somebody that is a higher rated player, if he values those things and he values what we're about, and I share with them up front, it's not easy here. Now, we have a lot of fun when we win, but we have a lot of hard work and sacrifice that goes into win. And if you're not wanting to learn how to compete every day and live with discipline and be accountable for your actions and then be passionate about the sport, we don't want you here. I don't care how good you are. And we share that up front. And that's how we try to build our program and our young people, because then they know they trust us coaches. Hey, we might be bringing in, you know, talented people or this or that, but they do value those things, and that creates a cohesive locker room. And in a sport of football, when you have we have almost 130 players. If you don't have a team chemistry, you don't have a cohesiveness, no matter how talented you are, it's not going to work. And everybody here knows in our program with our coaches that we're all around those values, and everything is geared toward, are you living up to those? And if you're not, we have issues. And I think if you know those things up front, we recruit somebody up front, we lay that out, then they know what the expectations are. And either they want to come and be a part of that or they don't. And that sort of helps us make sure we're recruiting the type of young people we need to be successful at Coastal Carolina.
Coach, give us those values again. I loved them. Give me those 4 again.
So the first one's competition, and it's all about competitive greatness. Being, you know, are you being basically being 1% better than you are? It's not about who we play. It's not about your opponent. It's about you. Are you willing to be the most competitive person in that room, looking in the mirror? Second, discipline. I want a disciplined player. And what that means is more so not necessarily showing up on time. Yes, there's a part of that, but it's more about, are you going to choose to live with discipline? Are you going to choose to get the proper sleep? Are you going to choose to study when you need to study? Are you going to choose to push aside the video games or maybe going out and doing the things necessary? There's a discipline to being great. And we want young people to understand what that discipline looks like. And then 3, are you accountable? And for us, our standard here is to be your absolute best. And Charles, how we define best here is belief, effort, sacrifice, and toughness. That's all we want. You believe in yourself, believe in your team, give effort for that belief, make sacrifice for it to happen, and be tough enough to push through when it gets challenged. And then lastly, passionate people. We define passion as suffering for what you love. And if you've loved something, you've had to suffer for it, whether that's a family, whether that's obviously the sport of football. And if I can recruit, and we can recruit people that live those values or understand those values and learn what they're about, then we've got a family. And then we've got a team that's rallying around a common purpose. It's not about just winning. Everybody wants to win, but is there a common purpose that we're pulling for? And those values of competition, discipline, accountability, passion, that's what we build around every day. It's what we recruit to. And we talk about it all the time. And that's what our culture is about. And that's how we try to make our culture strongest around those values.
Well, Coach, I have to tell you, I suffer because I like clothes. So I have to suffer to try and fit into them each and every year. So I get where you're coming from on that. But you mentioned your offensive line, and you mentioned the sizes and the heights, and that's not ideal. And, you know, most people think about, Division I football. Boy, that sure doesn't sound ideal. But you've got an option scheme that lays people out. And I know that you have some great, mentors in the background. I believe Bob Davey, Coach Bob DeBest. Can you walk us through a little bit about your option attack and how it's so dynamic?
Well, yeah, I have had some people that you learn from. What was unique when I was in college, Charles, we had a coaching change, And our head coach came from Air Force Academy, and he was their offensive coordinator. Their underneath center had Bo Morgan, who was a great player back in the day. And so he tried to mix some of that with what we were currently doing. And so I got a little base from him. Paul Hamilton was his name. And then as you continue and you go into coaching, you learn and grab from a lot of different people, right? But I got my first head job at a Division II school, North Greenville University, and we didn't have a lot. And so you have to try to do things to win. If I wanted to line up and do what everybody else was doing, probably wouldn't have won. And so you try to be creative in that way. What gives our players that maybe are undersized or maybe not as this or that, what gives them a chance to go out and try to win the game? Because at the end of the day, it's about winning. Who cares about the stats? My only one I care about is, are we winning the game or not? And so we try to put our players in places to be successful. That's either by scheme, leverage, angles. That's obviously what option football is. And what we try to do, if there's a guy over there that we just cannot block, we're not going to block him. We're going to try to read him. We're going to try to pitch out. We're going to do things. We're going to try to trap him. We're going to do things instead of trying to say, hey, my 5'9" center is going to beat your 6'2" nose guards 300 pounds. We're not going to win that ever in 75 play. We know that. So then we have to try to create certain schemes and plays through our option attack that, one, helps to, hopefully makes the defense line up in a certain way, but two, gives our guy a chance. And then if we're not blocking him every play, then when we are blocking him, he's looking around to see who's reading him or see where the play's come from. And then our 5-man center can get on him and do something. And so it's all about trying to make those defensive players slow down and make them think on the field. And if we can make them think and slow down, then we feel like that gives us an advantage, because then maybe if we are undersized, we can get underneath them, we can get the leverage, we can get the different things you need. And so we take into every game, we're going to look at a position and say, hey, we're outmatched here. All right, we're going to carry a couple plays to give our nose guard or our center a chance to win. We're going to carry a couple plays to give our guard or tackle a chance to win. And then mix that and match it with some of our RPOs and some of those, getting to put a game plan together. And that's how we try to create it, to say, hey, what do we have? We know we can't beat this guy straight up in certain ways. We're going to have to read this guy, trap him, et cetera, and build our game plan from that. And it looks, if you watch us, it looks like, we're doing all these creative things, which we are. But for our linemen, it's the same type of deal for them consistently, except, hey, we're just not blocking this guy on this play. All right, hey, you do this time. And just trying to give those guys up front and the linebackers different looks to slow them down and give our guy chances to make the plays necessary.
Well, Coach, as a defensive guy, when I watch you guys, what would drive me insane is I'm having a hard time picking up tendencies. I'm having a hard time picking up reads and keys. How do you get so much done kind of trying to look the same on most snaps?
Well, part of it is when you have some tendencies, which we do, we try to Hudl, but people are going to know we're running certain plays with certain looks and certain different those things. But part of it is who are we reading somebody different on this play? And it might be the same exact play, but we change who we're reading up, or we change just a little tad of the blocking scheme. We end up pulling that center instead of pulling the guard, vice versa. And so it looks like, from, if you're on the defensive side of the ball, maybe it looks like this is a completely different scheme, this or that. But really, it's just us changing up based off of leverage and angles, trying to run the same plays that we want to run, but just give us a different look. We're big into motions and formations to try to run the same things. And for us, if we can make that defense and the defense coordinator think, or they have to do, hey, they're in this formation, they're going to run this, and just try to change it up just a little bit, then we feel like that gives us an advantage, because hopefully the defense coordinator is trying to, all right, I got to prepare for a lot of things, and hopefully we find what he didn't prepare for. I think that's the beauty of what we try to do, is we have just enough that we feel like we can execute, that if they've not prepared for a certain thing, then that gives us an opportunity to take advantage of it. And there's certain games this year, the BYU game being an example, there's no way, we had, I think, 75 plays that game. There was no way with their defensive line we were going to be able to run certain things and block those guys. They were too big and fast for us. And so we tried to find certain ways. Hey, you know what? They didn't prepare for this, and there was one play that they really didn't prepare for. We ran 19 times. We ran it 19 times in that game. Now, it was different ways, but we had success with it. And so the next game, we ran that play once, and so, but that's because the scheme and different things. And so we really work hard on having just enough to where we feel good about executing it. And if the defense hadn't maybe prepared for it or wasn't ready for it out of certain formation, then we stay with it. That's my tendency. We're going to stay with it in that game if it works. Yeah,
and that takes ego out of it, because a lot of play callers, Coach, it's hard, right? When you look at some of the play callers that we know, that menu that they have in front of that play sheet sometimes looks like something out of Cheesecake Factory. And I feel like some play callers young feel like I got to call all this because I have it on here, as opposed to something that's working 19 times. Help us out, Coach, with the red zone, because with your option attack, getting into the red zone, you've got to be creative to get some things done down there because of the field condensing.
You're exactly right, and I was really proud of our red zone performance this year. We finished #1 in our conference. I think top 5 in the country in scoring from the red zone in, and it's a challenge down there. But the thing that, from our standpoint, with our option game wise, we want to try to force the defense to still have to defend it. And so that means we're going to maybe run it as much down there. But if they have to line up to still try to defend it, then that gives us some one-on-one matchups. We got a really good tight end, receivers wise, and that gives us a chance to get some of those one-on-one throws where we feel like we can win. The hardest thing, in my opinion, down there is getting your players to understand what it means to be in the red zone. A lot of times if you don't understand situational football, we go through every offseason as we go in through spring practice, we take segments throughout and really identify to our players, hey, what is this situation where it's third down, et cetera. And we hammer home red zone, and we talk about it. We have actually a theme about it, what we want down there for our offense, what our defense wants. They know once we're down there, we have a certain key word to try to make things happen. And so for us, the big thing is still making the defense try to have to defend our read, our dive, our pitch. And then now that gives us some of those one-on-one matchups that, you covet there on the outside where they can't maybe double a certain guy here or there. And that gives us a chance to still be effective. And 2 years ago, we weren't near as effective at that. And that's one of the things that we really try to focus on is everybody loves first and second down, right? It's those key situations. It's the Belichick principle. Hey, win the key situations. And we're no different. But I do think because we can do some triple option, we can do some double option, we can do some zone concepts, things in our offense. And that field narrows, but it gives us those chances, those one-on-one opportunities that we feel like, we got a good chance of winning.
Coach, you mentioned the tight end, Isaiah Likely. I mean, that's got to be one of those great recruiting stories, and also bringing a guy along. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I'm going back a little bit, but it's still part of the development of your program, the development of players, isn't it?
It is, and I believe wholeheartedly. We're a developmental program, and we're not getting the best of the best. We're recruiting the best of the best, and hopefully we're continuing to build that. But also the guys that we get, they've got to get X, Y, Z. And so our whole philosophy from a strength and conditioning standpoint is developing them, and from a coaching standpoint. And Isaiah is a young man that came in he's out of Massachusetts and wasn't really highly recruited. Was a basketball player, thought he was a basketball player, and played.
Coach, we all think we're basketball.
Yeah. He thought he was going to the NBA. He's a legend here in intramurals, So, but he was one of those guys that we recognized had some talent. And had some just natural skill sets. And then when we got here, he was not very, very developed, didn't lift a lot in high school because of the basketball, but he had a lot of natural skills. And as a freshman, you put him in some situations, to see what he did. And he played a little bit for us as a freshman and got some experience. And then really as a sophomore, really came in and on. And this last year just really started focusing and growing up and maturing to where he became a huge matchup nightmare. And I think he ended up with 30-something catches on the year, missed a couple games from injuries, but he averaged almost 20 yards a catch. And he's a guy that we could get in some situations where we feel great. He can go beat a safety. He can beat a linebacker. We even lined him up at an X and all these different positions. We love tight ends, and we're going to try to use him in a mighty way. We think he's an NFL draft pick. If he has another good year this year, we think he's that good. But part of that goes into he was 200 when he got here, 215 pounds, and skinny, didn't even know what a weight room looked like. And now he's up to, 245. He was an All-American and first-team All-Conference. And obviously that's a credit to him and his dedication and desire, but also of, our strength and conditioning, saying, hey, this is a young man that's raw. I always remember, none of the people remember this are young, but there was this movie Ghost. I don't know if you remember Ghost, where they're there making that. It was a sensual scene, but they're molding that thing there. But you got clay and you're trying to mold it into some pottery, and all of our clay's not perfect. There's some rough edges, as a coach, and we're not getting the 5 stars and this or that to have all these things, but we're getting those 3-star guys that have the great potential and talent. Are we putting them in positions to be successful? Are we asking them to do things that they can do and ask them not to do what they can't do? I think as a coach, we get so caught up, well, this is my scheme and we're going to run it, and hopefully you're good at it. And if you're not, so be it. I try to take a separate philosophy, offense, defense. What do we do well? What does he do well? And if he does this, let's put him out there. If he can't do this, why am I going to ask him to do that? That's dumb on my part because he can't do it. And so that's part of development. The process is, he might be terrible at something. You can work on it to get it better, but he's probably never going to be great. But he might be really good at something. If you develop that, he can become special at it. And that's how we try to develop certain guys and put them in those positions to be successful. And he's a great example of that. And again, building him up, saying you can do this. If you do X, Y, Z, you can become an NFL draft pick. And I think you'll see him do that this coming year.
Well, Coach, that's a much better scene in Ghost where they were putting together the pot than it was for poor Fawn Leibowitz in Animal House when she had to kill him accident. So we'll just go on from there. In the defensive fronts, bare and tight fronts were kind of the rage in college football this year. What did you have to do to go against them? What are your best ways to attack them?
Well, that has been the rage, and that's a tough defense to go against because they take away a lot of things. For us, what we tried to do is, all right, we go in with a couple game plans. First, we're going to try to attack the four eyes with loop schemes, or we're going to try to trap them, or we're going to try to put them in a bind, whether we're blocking down on them. We're trying to do three things to each position that we can. That's down blocking. That might be looping them. That might be trapping. So there's three things that defensive player sort of got to think about. And then we're going to pitch off of them, and so for us, we try to do our best to manipulate those four eyes as far as different scheme wise to make them have to play so many different things again where they can slow down. And then secondly, we're going to try to do something with the nose guard. Same thing. All right, with the nose, we can block him, we can down block. We're going to try to split him and read him, and we're going to try to trap him or blast him, is the term we use in our vernacular. And so again, am I going to line up and try to block a four eye with our tackles or our guards and try to zone them? That's tough to do consistently, because that's why you play a four eye scheme, right? Because that makes it hard to run zone in certain plays because they take up two gaps and it's a tough deal. And so for us, we've tried to go in and say, all right, people are going to play this to us. How can we manipulate them with different looks? How can we read them? How can we make them have to slow down and play a couple of different looks? And so we'll take it in each week and try to have three things that we make that guy defend, and whatever it may be within our scheme, but where he has to at least think about it and practice that week. And if I can get him thinking what's coming next, then he's not coming off the ball as fast. He's looking for the trap coming, or he's looking for this, looking for that. And then that slows him down. And if we can get him to slow down enough, then that gives us a great opportunity to move the ball where he's over there on the sideline saying, hey, coach, they're doing X, Y, Z to me. And so for us, that's still a challenge. I think that defense is a tough defense to try to go against. But those are things how we try to attack it. I'm not going to come up and say, hey, we're going to move this guy. It's not going to happen. It's just not. And so I don't care who we have. That's a tough deal. If you're playing that, you're pretty good and your linebackers are free, et cetera. So we're going to try to do those things, put those guys, at least in our run game, put those guys in some different areas to manipulate them. And then what's the defense's answer? Well, they try to get some of those perimeter guys more involved, and that's where we go to our RPO game and now make that a next level read. All right, now we'll do some things up front and try to take advantage of the secondary support coming down to take advantage of our pitch game and some of those things. And that's how we play the game within the game.
Coach, when you're trying to, with those bare and the tights and whatever you've got up front, with your size guys, you're trying to make them wrong right out of the gate, aren't you? Like if you could just get them take one step in the wrong direction, now your 5'9" center has the advantage no matter how big you are, and he's got a chance to get something done, correct?
100%. If we can make them misfit something, if we can make them step somewhere wrong where they shouldn't be and see something happen, then it allows our guys, because we're always going to have leverage against who we play because we're so small. We walk out with leverage. That's what I tell my guys. We're always going to have leverage. And so, but that gives them, again, it goes back to what can we do to give our people the best chance to be successful. It doesn't really matter what, somebody else is doing. They might have, really good one, and it makes it challenging. But can we put our guys in the position to at least let their talent go out and shine on game day? And so part of that is making them step wrong, making them think here or there. And then if we can get our guys underneath them enough, then we feel like we wear them down. One of the philosophies, Charles, that we try to do with that is, we're a no huddle team, about like 99% of the people, but we were top 5, top 10. I think it's top 5 in the country in time of possession. And so you don't typically get that with a no huddle team. But the reason why we do that, the more we're out there making that defense have to think and play some plays, one, that keeps the opposing offense off there, but two, those guys get tired. And then that's when our guys, because of the, maybe because they're leverage and some of those things, that's when we can really take control of games late in the fourth quarter. And so that's part of that philosophy as well, is trying to do enough. A lot of people run as many plays as they can, and wear people out that way, which is awesome. We're sort of the other way. We're going to average 70 to 75 plays. But if we can keep that ball 34, 35, 36 minutes, that defense is out there awful lot, and we're trying to tire them down. And then that's when they are misfitting. That's when they're not stepping right. That's when they're not thinking. And those plays at 3 yards, 4 yards, they start becoming 20, 30, 40, and that's when you can really put the game on ice. And so that goes into our overall philosophy of how we try to win.
Coach, I played in the dark ages, and when we played option attacks, it was the option game, the run game, and then you break off a big chunk in the pass game, because at some point, here comes the safety, right? Everyone dives, and now you're going to throw it over their head. But you mentioned your RPO game, Coach. It seems to me that you can hit all levels now with your option attack. It's not just feast or famine throwing the ball downfield, where your quarterback at the end of the day is, 4 of 6 for 155 yards and 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean? So am I on track with that, Coach, and what you're doing with your option game and being able to throw it?
You are. We get labeled, as an option attack, which is a fine label, because we do run some of that. But like this past year, total we ran, like, as far as true, like triple plays, we probably only ran about 25 or 30 overall. But you build in your RPOs and some of those things. We wanted to make sure that our offense is built around our players and what gives us the best chance each week. I'll reference 2 games. We played the BYU game, and I told you we ran that one play about 19 times. I think we rushed for almost 300 yards. We were 8 of 10, I think, throwing for 85 yards in that game. The very next week, we threw for 320-something yards in our last game of the year. And so part of that is we're going to do what we can to win the football game. And if we have to drop back and RPO and drop back and play action, and I think we threw the ball 35 times in that game. We feel confident with what we have. We're not just an option team that has to hopefully hit a post wheel,
right,
when the safety's running to win games. And so we've really tried to create the offense and expand it to fit, 1, who you have, but 2, to not put ourselves in a box, because I think you have to be balanced to be able to run and throw the ball to win in today's game. You have to be able to score points. And so that's why we wanted to continue to expand with the RPOs and some of those things to give us a chance to take advantage of second level and third level defenders, but also still make them have to play some of our option principles. And that's how we try to mix and match it. And we don't go in with a huge play sheet, a huge call sheet. We have about 3 or 4 plays under the formations we want to use. And we try to, those 3 or 4 plays are basically the same in a lot of the ways, but they have the RPO component of it. They have the pitch phase off of it. They have the double option off of it. And so it looks like it's a bunch of different ones, but really it's very similar. So we can execute it all the time in practice, where it's not a new play. It's just our guys getting better at it. And then that gives us a chance to try to take advantage of how people are trying to defend us. Because we'll get some games where they defend us as a option team, and we're able to, hopefully throw the ball well. And then we'll get some games where they say, you know what, we're not going to let you RPO. And then we feel good about our run game and some of the things that we can do to give us a chance to move the ball and win. And so for us, we're always trying to evolve. I'm not married to a certain thing, but we want to have certain parameters in our offense that gives us a chance each week, no matter who we're going. I feel like we can move the ball. And then we're going to have to do X, Y, Z to try to win the game, and whatever it takes. Some people, there's no way they would run the ball and only threw for 85 yards because it hurt their stats. I could care less. I want to win. And then the next week I say, well, we're not rushing for enough. No, I want to win. We have to throw it. We're going to throw it. And it's about winning. And sometimes I get ticked off because people, I think, sometimes care so much about, well, we scored so many points. I want to play complimentary football, and I want to give ourselves the best chance to win the game each Saturday. Because at the end of the day, that's the only stat that matters. And that's why we do those things we do to give our team the best chance to win on Saturdays.
We view Bank, the Hall of Fame coach, used to always talk about brilliance is in simplicity. Vince Lombardi, who the Lombardi Trophy, the Super Bowl trophy is named for, they always talk about having one of the thinnest playbooks in the NFL. Then you watch, remember the Titans. Coach Boone, that seems like an awfully thin playbook. Hey, it's like Novocaine. Might take a while, but it works every time. But you also sounded to me, Coach, I want you to expand a little bit, still being able to have answers no matter what's presented. Whatever they present to you, no matter what you have, you've got answers for them, or you think that you've got answers, and that's built into your offense?
Well, that's the key. We think we do. Sometimes
I mean,
we don't.
we all do,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's the goal. We know that's the goal.
If I have the pen last, we think we
if
do.
I got to talk, I got a chance.
Yeah. So, but that is, I think that's the beauty of if you have an option type attack, you feel like you do have an answer for, all right, they're playing us in this. We can do this. They're playing this. We can do this. But then, if you really want to try to take advantage of your skill set, I feel like we've got good receivers, and I want to make sure we have a chance to take care of, give them the ball. We got a good tight end. You have to expand and have answers, and from that standpoint as well. I can just say, hey, line up. We're going to block. I want you to block 100 times, and we're going to throw the ball 10 times. I want our guys to know, hey, we're going to do certain things, and if they play a certain way, if we have to throw it 50 times, we're going to throw it 50 times to win the game. But I won't say we pride ourselves, but we work hard on making sure we do have, all right, they're taking this away. What's the next step for us to still have a chance to move the ball? Is that an RPO? Is that having another wrinkle off of our pitch phase? Is that having more of a drop back or a play action feel? And so that's what we spend a lot of time on game planning on. Our game plans, for the most part, are done each week. We know exactly what we want to run, but our game plan is really spent on answers there. They're going to try to defend us this way. What's our answers to that, and how do we practice that and execute that where we feel good about doing that on Saturdays?
Coach, we have a little bit less than 10 minutes to go, so I want to try and get to a couple more things if at all possible. As a head coach, it's not just everything we're talking about right now. You oversee strength and conditioning, right? Academics, training staff, all of those things. And when I say oversee, you have a working relationship because we've gotten very good about what the right lines are for coaches, training staff, people of that nature. What's that like with those duties as a head coach? Because I know a lot of the people who are watching now, listening now, they have those duties as well.
Well, one, I think those positions, I think your strength and conditioning and whatever your athletic trainers, I think those are two of the most important positions that you have. And the reason why I say that is your strength and conditioning coach, whether you do it in your high school gym, whether you're part of that or you have somebody that does it, and then your athletic trainer, whether you resort it out or have somebody there, they also are setting the temperature of your program, because most kids, they're going to try to find a place that they can get out of certain things. And if they find it, if they can find, hey, coach ain't in here to monitor certain things, if they can find a way to maybe, they're going to try to find that. And so I believe that strength and conditioning coach has to make sure he has your voice. He's communicating your vision every day, exactly what you want to do. And he's the one developing your players. And I think you talk about fun. I think they got to have fun in that weight room. You know this, Charles, our sport is the only sport in the world where you practice and train more than you play, right? Like, high school football, you get 10 games, maybe 11 guaranteed, you got to earn the playoffs. We get 12 guaranteed, you got to earn the playoffs. That's it. You're playing basketball, you're playing 30 plus, baseball, you're playing 40, 50. Soccer seems like they play every day. I mean, they play all the time. And so I want that strength conditioning to be one, to share our vision every day, but also when they go in there, they know what it's about and they're excited about going in there. I think that's the big deal. That who that is and the tone that he sets really develops the character of your football team. What you do in there tells me or determine what type of team you're going to have from a character standpoint, because that's where you learn about inches. That's where you learn about staying behind the line. That's where you learn about pushing yourself beyond what you think. And that strength coach has power over that. And then from an athletic training standpoint, obviously from a standpoint of keeping your players healthy, getting them back, but also making sure there's some toughness there. Sometimes that bruise might turn into a little bit deeper if I feel like I have to go run more, right? And that's right. where that athletic trainer has to make sure that he's on the same page with the strength and conditioning, with your head coach, with the vision of that, knowing, hey, this is how we handle certain things, because you want great communication between all those things, but you also want everybody going in the same direction. And when there's, when I took over here, maybe we didn't have the same direction as far as what I anticipated as the head coach and maybe what was going on in those certain areas. And that takes a while to build that camaraderie, but also everybody being on that same page. And I think they're important. And that strength coach, here, our players love going in there. He makes it fun. Now they work. He makes it fun. He's a meathead, which I think they love about him. He's awesome. He gets them out, and they love going in there and they love developing. That's part of it. Hey, I can take this clay, and if you follow this is what we can turn you into. And when they see it happen, man, the light comes on, and then the young people that follow them, they see it. Man, Johnny did this. If I can do what Johnny did, I've got a chance. And then it just starts, and that's how you build your program. That's how you get momentum, and that's how you get confidence. And I'm a big believer that if in today's age, Charles, if you get on social media, everything's negative, right? Everything. There's not a lot of positive in the life today. And if we're not building positive into our players, who are? And so we try to find the positives, what these players are doing well. And we try to make sure we insinuate that in everything we do in that strength coach. And I think that's a big part of what they should do is build positive momentum, build positive thoughts, and lift them up. That doesn't mean you can't hold them accountable, right? But if you lift them up, man, this is their best part of their day. I want them, when they come to our program and they come over to the strength and conditioning, that's the favorite part of their day because they know they're going to get coached. They know they're going to be loved. But two, they know they're going to be pushed to their extreme, but they're going to have something positive, rewarding from it. Because when they go back to social media, Twitter and all those things, everything's about how bad the world we live in, how this or that. And I want them to enjoy being a part of that program. And I think all of the people that are involved with that, athletic training, strength and conditioning, that's part of it.
Yeah, and I love that term of endearment for your strength and conditioning coach. Call him a meathead because this is the guy who relates to the players right in there and all of that. But that's also the same guy. If you sit down and have a discussion with him about biomechanics, meathead goes right out the window. It's just full intelligence. Then
it's unbelievable.
God, what are they talking about?
Yeah, it's like he could build a rocket for NASA, and then you ask him something about what's 5 + 5, and he has to take 10 minutes to figure it out, So
but they got that stuff down pat, and players love that. Coach, we know we talked about this earlier. 2020, this season, where our world is, nothing was normal. Okay, so we all kind of understand what a normal week looks like as football coaches, as people participate in the sport. Can you take us through a week this year you had, and we have about 5 minutes, Coach, a little less than 5 minutes. Take us through a week that was beyond not normal, yet still getting your team ready to play.
Well, I'm going to take you through how fall camp worked, which was unique for us. All right. So we came in, let's say August 7th. And so the first time we were actually able to meet face to face, not on Zoom with our team, was not till September, the week of our first game, September 12th. And so we were actually in tents outside. That's where they would go to tents outside, and we would meet with them, position or whatever it may be, and then we would actually go to practice. And the way our week, you tried to keep it normal, right, as much as you could, but it wasn't from a meeting standpoint and all those things. And so you're practicing the way we tried to have to practice is you tried to practice in more pods per se, meaning, hey, you had certain groups together and you tried to keep them together. We tried to limit as much of the contact as we could, but eventually you get to the point where, football is a contact sport. So you had to do some of it, right? And so you don't want to be that team. Well, they didn't tackle anybody and they're getting beat 50-0 because they didn't tackle anybody. I don't want to be that team. And so it was really a fine line, and to trust your doctors and everybody saying, hey, these are things you can do. Please don't do these certain things because this will help you get as many players as you can to play, et cetera. And so, from a standpoint of what a normal Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday would look like, I would share with you, we tried to make it as normal as it was as possible, with the exception of the testing and then the type of practice we did from a standpoint of how much hitting we were doing and how much were we together. We tried to keep, your offensive line together as much as possible until we absolutely had to go team. Sometimes you would have them all together all the time, right? And we tried to limit as much as we could because of the rules that were in place at that time. What was great about it, I think, is we went on during the year, Charles. Well, some of those things, you don't need to do this as much, right? We're figuring this virus out. You can go back to doing X, Y, and Z. And it was a learning as we go. And I think the biggest challenge was waiting for your test to come back, right? And so some people tested 3 times a week. The Sun Belt rule, we had to test 1 time a week for the Sun Belt rule, and we did it every Wednesday. And so after practice, we test in the mornings on Wednesday, and you're waiting Thursday morning for, all right, are we going to play this week? Who's your team? And then you figure out who you're missing. And then that Thursday practice turned into, all right, he hardly got any reps this week. You're trying to amp up reps for somebody that didn't get on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to try to get him ready to play. And so we gave a lot more reps throughout the week to people that were in position that maybe wouldn't get as many reps, but we tried to make sure we could bring them along in case, something happened where we lost some starters from some of those standpoints. Fortunately for us, we did a great job for the most part. We got caught towards the end of the year with an outbreak, but for the most part, our players did a good job of trying to follow rules and doing the things necessary. But we hardly met face to face until we absolutely had to, and then once we were capable of doing that, then we tried to make it as normal as possible from a meeting standpoint. But we never tried to stay long. You shorten meetings, and we try to do a lot more walkthroughs on the field.
Coach, I've got to tell you, on behalf of Blitz 21, on behalf of Huddle, this has been phenomenal. This has been a blast for me because now that I can, I couldn't run when I played, coach. So let's just go ahead and call it as it was. But now that I'm just a broadcaster, being able to listen to you, take us through the different things that are going on with your team, how you try to do things. This is all valuable information for me. It's valuable information for everybody who's on here watching today. We can't thank you enough for your time, your expertise, willingness to share with us. Congratulations again to you and your program on a phenomenal 2020 season. And I know coaches, that's great. What's the next challenge? Let's get the spring ball. Let's get going for next year. And for all those 5'9" guys calling and wanting to play for you, what's going to be your tiebreaker bringing them in? Or you have to be able to recite Jabberwocky, or what's it going to be for you, coach?
I tell them this: if they can touch the rim, they're in. They don't have to dunk. They just got to touch the rim.
Touch the rim, and you guys will take it from there. You'll find the weight room. You'll coach them up. You'll get them ready to go. They'll learn the 4 tenets of your program and be ready to rock and roll. Coach Jamey Chadwell, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Huddle, too.
All right. Fantastic. I don't know about you guys, everyone out there listening and watching. That was one of my great takeaways, be able to spend that time with him, the enthusiasm, the knowledge, the expertise, what he did on this season, absolutely phenomenal. So Coach Jamey Chadwell, we thank him one more time. We wish him continued success at Coastal Carolina. And I've got a few takeaways. I'm sure you all do as well. So before we get to our next guest, it's now time for us to announce the winner of our Huddle remote giveaway. And we all know how many of you love the Huddle remotes. So let's give a hearty congratulations to Mike Reese from Westfield High School in Indiana and Anthony Kofer of Central Mountain High School in Pennsylvania. You're both getting a Huddle remote, and the Huddle team will contact you to get it sent out right away. All right, need a little bit, how about a 10-minute break? Everybody up for that? We'll take a 10-minute break, but when we come back, a former Navy SEAL by the name of Dave Burke is going to talk to you about leadership tactics you can apply to your programs. I know you're going to stick around for that.